Thank you, Chief. Mayor, Council, it's a privilege to be able to talk to you all today about Flock as a tool, answer any questions you might have. One of the things we pride ourselves on is accessibility and transparency, and I'm looking forward to having that conversation today. And so I plan on taking only 5 minutes of your time, but again, happy to stay and answer any questions for as long as you might have. Again, focus on fact and addressing what Flock actually is. So with Flock, it's a couple of things that are very important. The first thing that's very important to address is that you own your data. Flagstaff owns Flagstaff data, not Flock. Flock contractually cannot sell and cannot share your data. Any of the images that are collected by Flagstaff's cameras are not dumped into a giant pool of data. It's specifically your data that can only be shared by you. And we have created multiple tiers of sharing that to make sure that your community safety never has to come at the expense of your community values. So that's the first item. And we will never sell. We are not data brokers. We do not sell data to make profit. That is not our business model. Our business model is selling this tool to communities. So we will never sell your private data. Second is Flock's private customers never have access to government data. So there are some retailers that use Flock to fight organized retail theft. We have rental car companies that use Flock for various reasons. They can choose to share their cameras with law enforcement, but they will never get law enforcement data. They will never get alerts on the hot lists or anything to that effect. So you own your data 100%. You choose whether or not you want to share it with any other community, and no private entity will ever have access to your government data. It's also important to note Flock automatically deletes after 30 days any data that you have that isn't downloaded and used by Flagstaff authorities for evidentiary purposes. We do not keep data. Again, keeping data is actually a cost. And what this is it's both an accountability mechanism to make sure that we're not collecting more and more data, but to also to make sure that you all are balancing your community values with community safety. And again, only your agency decides who to share data with. And another extremely important thing to note, Flock, in the images that we take with the cameras on your behalf, collects no personally identifiable information. Nobody at Flock has access to any PII, no social security numbers, no deeds or registrars, the things that are in this building right now, incredibly sensitive information. Flock does not contain that. All it contains is images of vehicles, license plates, which are a public document meant for public display on public roadways. And I think that's very important to note, given the concerns nationally about what's going on, is the fact that this is an incredibly important tool, but it is one that is a step removed from PII, helping to alleviate some of those concerns. In all of that data, despite the fact that it is a picture of a public document on a public vehicle on a public road, we still encrypt all of that data, all of those images, as if they were the most sensitive data out there, as if it was a social security number. This includes being certified by FBI CJIS standards. That means we are certified SOC 2 Type 2 auditing to make sure that our processes are continually protected. This includes HIPAA, FERPA, SOC 3, ISO 27001. We treat this data as securely as most governments treat their most sensitive data, like there is in this building, with social security numbers, with registrars of deeds, with that information. And we're very proud of that, and we're continually improving on it. But very important to know, we do not own your data, only you do. We do not sell or share your data. Only the city of Flagstaff and your police department can make that decision. And we have no personally identifying information as a part of the images that we collect. So those are a few very important things to note as we move forward. Now, there's been obviously a broader conversation going on regarding tensions between states, localities, and the federal administration. And we are continually improving and upgrading our system to make sure, again, that your community safety never has to come at the expense of community values. And we want to make sure that any sharing decision your department or your community makes can be fully aligned with your values. So I wanted to highlight a couple of these upgrades that we have just introduced just in the last couple of weeks. First, we've introduced a keyword filter for prohibited searches. So especially for states that have sanctuary city laws, entities that have sanctuary city laws, if there is a search that violates those laws, it will not provide access to the system. You will not be able to use the system for that. So that's a very important one. It'll block the search from returning any data from those cameras. And then when it comes to federal organization jurisdiction types, we've created a new federal organization tag to make it crystal clear when you're choosing who you decide to share with, if at all, that you know who you're sharing with. We've heard from some of our customers that it isn't clear enough who is where and who is what, despite the name being there. So we are going to make it crystal clear who these sharing partners are, to make sure that, again, it's easier for agencies to understand who is requesting access, and so they can comply appropriately according to your community's values and laws. And then we are adding additional limitations on federal organization types. Federal organizations do not have access to statewide or national lookup. Federal organizations cannot access data from law enforcement agencies in states like Virginia or California, even if the organization is based in one of those states. So we are providing additional layers of security at every level to make sure that community safety never has to come at the expense of community values. And you may hear about impact, and I want to provide you two organizations that can truly attest to Flock's impact that have vouched for LPRs. The first is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. This NCMEC, as it's known, runs the nation's Amber Alert program. They have fully endorsed Flock because they have been able, utilizing Flock, to find hundreds of missing children. These are children that are abducted, taken across state lines. People ask why sharing is important. If you choose to share, missing children is one of the biggest examples, and that's why NCMEC is such a strong supporter of license plate reader technology. The next organization that, again, fully supports license plate reader technology is Mothers Against Drunk Driving. This is a group whose sole purpose is to stop needless, pointless deaths on our streets. And just this past weekend, a license plate reader camera was able to catch someone who buzzed by a school bus as schools were going to school, hit a 9-year-old. An LPR was able to find that person and provide the evidence necessary to prosecute them. And so you'll hear potential questions about the efficacy of whether or not do cameras bring down crime, do they not bring down crime, any number of things. What I also want to make sure that I impart here is the ability to prosecute crimes effectively with unbiased evidence. Up until this point of this era of license plate readers, in most cases, you relied on the subjective judgment of a police officer deciding which license plate, which car was most suspicious to run, which person in which car was suspicious. LPRs take that potential subjectiveness and bias out of policing. So your law enforcement are only getting alerts to cars that have previously been identified as suspicious and wanted in connection with a crime. So in reality, this is actually the opposite of mass surveillance, as you might hear. This is actually precision policing. No longer, in the event someone is kidnapped, is every red F-150 a suspect. Now you're looking for the F-150. And you're allowing your police officers and your law enforcement agencies to prioritize actual, unbiased, objective leads instead of the potential subjective judgment of who might be suspicious and who might not be. And then with transparency, it's very important to know every search requires a registered ID along with a search reason and potentially a case number depending on your policies. This is critical because even though the images themselves are deleted after 30 days, those searches are kept permanently. You can run an audit every quarter, every month, every day. And every single search, both within your department and from whoever you've chosen to share with, is permanently logged. And so that provides a level of transparency where if there is a case where your data is not being utilized in the way you want by a particular agency, you can identify that quickly and you can revoke access. That is 100% your right. You are not obligated to share with anyone. If someone's not using your data the way you think they should, or that goes along with your community values, you all are in control of revoking that access. You may also hear some questions or concerns around litigation. There is one ongoing case in Norfolk, Virginia, where this is coming up and ongoing, but in every other, at the circuit level, the federal level and at the state level, LPR usage has been found constitutional under the Fourth Amendment. Most recently, in a circuit case in northern Chicago, specifically said license plate readers are constitutional under the Fourth Amendment. This is a level of case law that is really unprecedented as it relates to public safety technology. So there is one ongoing case, but overwhelmingly at the circuit, the appeals level, LPR has been found to be constitutional. And that leads me into my last portion regarding privacy itself and what these cameras are and what they are. These cameras do not track the every movement of every single person wherever they go. If that was true, it would need a warrant under the Fourth Amendment. What these cameras do are take an individual picture at a point in time at a static location so that your law enforcement agencies can have a tangible, objective piece of evidence that they can utilize to both identify a potential suspect in a case, as well as prosecute those suspects in court. This is not tracking. This is not a camera that follows you everywhere you go, that can tell what you bought at a grocery store, that can tell where you go to church or what hospital you use. This is for objective, individual evidence that can help your law enforcement agency do more with less. And so with that, I'm happy to answer any specific questions about the cameras, about the technologies themselves. Just really grateful for the opportunity to talk with you and grateful for the opportunity to work with your agencies.
Thank you. We have a question from Councilmember Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'm online today. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person, but my day job had me in another location today. I have a question for the current block representative. So as the mayor as the mayor let us know earlier, we were here for kind of two separate things on this one agenda topic. One of them is to continue our relationship with Flock. I wanted to ask the representative if we as a council decided that we needed more time to, for instance, put some town halls together or get more information and feedback from our community. Do we have some flexibility as far as getting this contract, signed off on, or extending Flock's capacity here in Flagstaff? Could you give us the grade?
Yeah, I will check into that. I feel confident that the answer is a yes, but not being a part of our sales or contract team, as well as over state law about utilizing something in that gray area, I would need to double check with them. I can tell you we're committed to being a good partner, and if you with your legal department were able to identify that path to make it happen, I'm confident that we can make it happen.
Thank you for answering that question. And I had one other question. I'm trying to figure out how to formulate it. And that is the Flock system, when it's looking in on license plates or when it's looking on the exterior of a vehicle, what would, in your opinion, would be the distinction between pushing the envelope on our Fourth Amendment right? Or is everything that it's capturing outside the realm of our Fourth Amendment right?
So, great question. Supreme Court case law has actually specifically exempted the exterior of a vehicle from that sort of search requirement. And so there's actual case law where a law enforcement official saw the exterior of a car, I won't get this precisely right, saw there was red paint on it, associated that with a hit and run and used that as cause for further investigation. That was taken all the way to the Supreme Court saying you can't use that because it was on my personal car. That was found to be allowed by the Supreme Court. And so that didn't directly impact LPR specifically, but it did demonstrate that the exterior of a car is, especially driven on a public road, is not covered under the Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment mosaic theory, happy to get into additional constitutional law with you, requires a greater consistency of tracking of travel. So while that would not violate the Fourth Amendment, putting a tracking device on a car without a warrant would violate the Fourth Amendment by what we have under the constitutional case law. Because these are cameras stationed at a fixed location, they're limited in number, they are not able to track you from every single place you're able to go, and their focus is on taking a image of a license plate, which license plates are owned by the government, and they are meant for public. These are documents that are legally owned by the government. They are made and meant to be publicly displayed when you are driving on public routes. It has been consistently found in case law overwhelmingly that those images at a set point in time in a limited nature, as Flagstaff's cameras are, does not violate the Fourth Amendment.
Thank you for that. That's all I have for now, Madam.
Vice Mayor Sweet.
Thank you, and thank you for being here tonight, Trevor. We had a couple of written comments, and one of the questions asked was, what is the difference between a typical license plate reader and the Flock system? Can you explain it to us?
Yes, so Flock took what was a typical license plate reader system and allows for agencies to be able to share if they so choose. And so previously, license plate readers, whether they were in a computer in a squad car, they would be able to previously type in the license plate, see if it hit on anything within your agency's hit list, or they would have a license plate reader on the dash cam of a car and do it that way. What this allows you, if you choose, is to be able to share with neighboring agencies. And so if you and Sedona or you and Phoenix decided to enter into a sharing relationship, so if you had a missing child that was associated with a red Ford F-150 license plate ABC 123, and you're able to, previously you were able to put that on your agency's APB. And so if this came across any of your agencies, only they would get that notification. However, if that ABC 123 was seen on Phoenix's license plate readers, that now not only alerts Phoenix to the fact that there is a vehicle associated with a missing child in Phoenix, but it'll also let your law enforcement agency know that as well. And so that's really the groundbreaking nature of what this has provided, which is why groups like the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children have so fully endorsed it.
Thank you. And to clarify, we share the information if and when we want to. It's
correct.
Not.
Yeah, correct. Flock does not make that decision for anyone. I think that's a very important thing to note. There's, some misinformation, misperception out there that we are trying to get everyone on board so we can just, monetize all the data, have it all shared. That is simply not the case. Your data is in a box on our highly encrypted cloud that we use until you choose on who you want to share it with. That is solely your decision, not Flock's. And I also I realized I forgot to mention this, these LPR cameras, they do not have facial recognition technology either, and you cannot search the database for human characteristics. So I think that's also very important. These are cameras focused on vehicles to identify vehicles and license plates.
Thank you for clarifying.
Councilmember Aslan.
Yeah, thank you, Trevor, for being here so much to speak with us and answer our questions and to address the community's concerns. Thank you, Police Chief, for your opening remarks. I want to springboard off of the Vice Mayor's question a little bit more. Walk me through what happens with alerts. Mm-hmm. So, for example, say an agency somewhere east of the Mississippi plugs in a license plate because they're doing an investigation, they want to track something down. Mm-hmm. If that license plate is seen in Flagstaff, even if we're not sharing information or willing to, will that agency get a ping that the license plate was moving through Flagstaff at a point in time?
No. So that's a very simple answer. But no, if there is no sharing relationship between you two, if say Flagstaff isn't opted into National Lookup or that agency isn't listed in National Lookup, you're only choosing to share within your state or however, that will not be alerted. So.
Thank you.
Councilmember House.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Trevor. Thank you, Chief. I know one of the major questions that we've received from our community has to do with the potential for sharing information with federal entities and use in federal immigration actions in particular. Can you tell us anything more about Flock's current status of sharing information for that purpose, or where that stands in terms of communities that have adopted this sort of programming, if we choose not to share that information, if whether or not Flock still has the ability to share our data if they as a national organization were to be sharing it with those federal entities.
Yes, thank you for that question. So there was a few-month pilot project with both HSI, which is Homeland Security Investigations, and Customs and Border Patrol. These were pilots, not official contracts, and they were used to think about efficacy as it relates to human trafficking and fentanyl trafficking. We have since ended those pilots. They do not have access to the system at all currently. And as I mentioned earlier, any federal agency that may get access to Flock will not have access to the state lookup or the national lookup. So they will only be able to utilize or engage with entities or with agencies that have agreed to have a direct sharing relationship with them. So if that were ever to be the case, Flagstaff would get a request from any one of these agencies, and we've, again, updated our marketing to make very, very clear what is a federal agency, so it is blindingly clear, so you all can make a decision based on your community's values as to whether or not you want to accept that sharing request or not. So, but again, you own your data, and so Flock will never share your data in a way that you have not explicitly consented to.
Sterling.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and I appreciate the Flock representative being here today and the presentation and the questions that he's answering. Some of them have kind of strayed into areas of legal questions. I just want to remind Council, obviously, we had an executive session before the meeting started today, the regular meeting, and if you have any additional legal questions, while we appreciate his statements and answers to the questions, if you're looking for legal advice, I would recommend either we go back up into executive session if you have any legal questions or anything along those lines. Just as a reminder, just want to make sure. Thanks.
And I would agree with that.
All right, I don't see any additional questions. So thank you.
Thank you.